Thank you. We're going to talk about jazz here, and we're celebrating jazz today. Cardinals are singing the blues. That's a different program. Okay, we're talking about jazz. And we're talking all about improvisation. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples right away. These are things I didn't know before I got to the door. In fact, there's going to be several. But first of all, I didn't know this was Boss's Day at all. And so by the end of this, we're going to talk about the ultimate jazz boss, the ultimate jazz organizational boss, a guy named Art Blakey. So Art Blakey started a group called the Jazz Messengers. And the list of musicians, including Wynton Marsalis and many, many others who have gone through that group over the years, it was a virtual jazz university, and he said these young cats got to find a way to hone their chops and to hone their craft. And so they came through that group. We're going to talk about learning by jamming, and that's what they did to learn. So the other thing that I think is interesting here is that I didn't know before I came in here is right here on our on the sheet. Okay, it says Bill Higley, Aegis Professional Services, and then it says applying jazz whiz-down to business. It's misspelled. Okay, so we don't know what that is, but hey, it's jazz. All right, so we're going to talk about, just by way of a little bit of a background here, in a typical jazz performance, typical jazz, you have an ensemble and then you have soloists. And so the ensemble plays the tune. There's melody, harmony, rhythm, and tempo, those elements of music, plays the tune, and then the soloists step out and they take solos. And they play solo for a while by themselves, and then they step back into the ensemble. And this goes on, you know, the piano player takes a solo and the drummer and horn players, and then the ensemble comes back and plays the tune at the end. And so what we're going to talk about is the relationship between those musicians and that ensemble and how they get better, how they make each other better, and see if there's a lesson for us. So the three, what I think are the three core aspects or values to this are, number one, improvise. Number two, find your own voice or develop your own style. And third, learn by jamming. And so in terms of improvisation, there are basically three elements to improvisation. Many times I get objections about jazz, or I get comments about jazz music. Doesn't make any sense to me. It's all dissonant. They're screeching at each other. You can't find a melody. They're making it up as they go along. It's just gibberish. But actually, in improvisation, there's an underlying structure that everybody understands, and then each individual has thousands of tunes and melodies in their repertory that they have ready to plug into that underlying musical structure. And the third element of improvisation is you go with it. You go with what's before you. You don't make a speech, you don't go into your own thing, you don't ignore, you take the situation as it is before you, a mess, whatever it is, and as one author has put it, you say yes to the mess. So it's different from what is called scripted music. So scripted music is what's on the printed page. And if you arrive at a concert and the piano player is going to play Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, you expect to see those notes and have Beethoven. And so, you know, there's that middle part of Beethoven where it goes ba 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 ba. Well, the jazz guy approaches that and sits down at the piano and sees those notes and goes all right? And all those notes are in there. But you didn't come to hear Beethoven, you came to see that guy solo. So scripted music is about the composer, and improvised music is about the soloist. So we do it all the time, every day, in spoken language. Spoken language, there's an underlying grammar, and we bring our vocabulary to that. In jazz, there's harmony and chords, a chord progression. There's melody and notes, and the individual musician brings a repertory of melodies that they plug into that will work with those chords. So you can go to those websites, 4 chords, learn these 4 chords, and you can play 1,000 songs. There's all kinds of websites like that. And if you want to learn those 4 chords, you can play, or 3 chords or 5 chords, and you can play thousands of songs. And that's because within the chord progression, there's an infinite variety of combinations of notes. So we're doing exactly the same thing with the spoken word that musicians are doing with music. So Miles Davis famously said, the only mistake is to believe that there can be a mistake. And so here, the analogy here is this. This is, that's okay, it's about jazz. Don't even worry about it, okay? All right? And so this might be a mistake in some, but it's not a mistake. It's just an experiment with an alternate spelling. That's all. But the meaning comes through. Everybody knew it meant wisdom. And the same with a wrong note. You hit a clinker? No, you're just experimenting with dissonance. That's all. And so, improvising is always in solo performance. It's experimenting. So what you see in a jazz performance is constant experimentation with how these melodies will fit. And so there is the famous Ella Fitzgerald and Mac the Knife. She had a concert in Berlin where she sang Mac the Knife. It's on this CD, and it's all over YouTube. And you can see it on YouTube. And she started to sing Mac the Knife, but it was the first time she'd ever performed it, and she forgot the lyrics. And so the musicians didn't know this. They just kept right on playing, and so she kept right on singing. And she made up her own lyrics. And she threw in some scat, and at one point she says Ella and her fellas are making a wreck of Mac the Knife. And so it became an absolute classic, and they went with it. They just went with what happened. There's no mistake there. There's nothing in error. So what's it look like in business? The organization has to be comfortable with basic direction. And maybe the basic direction to the employees is, our mission statement, spoil our customers. Now go out and figure out how to do that. And values the individual's contribution, the individual's improvisation. So you have to value the individuals, and you have to have confidence and trust that they are going to get themselves really good at being improvising. In language, how do you be a good improviser? How do you grow your vocabulary? You grow your facility at speaking. You become a very good improviser. The same in music and business. They develop new ways of doing things. We saw 2 examples here in a couple of previous. We saw Mary Kuthais, and we saw Will talking about ways that they have reinvented themselves. They have constantly improved. That's improving their repertoire of skills that they bring to the basic underlying structure of business. Find your own voice. Clark Terry, St. Louis's famous Clark Terry, the trumpet player, said, you imitate, assimilate, and then create. This is what jazz musicians do. Imitate means study. So you study the solos, the recorded solos of others, and you learn to play them in all 12 keys. This is a tradition among jazz musicians. You learn that melody, Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, but then you learn to play it in all 12 keys. The concert pianist doesn't do that. They learn to play it in the key in which it was written. The jazz musician plays it in all 12 keys and extends it. So you assimilate, you develop competence on your instrument, you copy what others have done, you learn that for the purpose of then pushing the envelope and extending beyond, so you develop your own style, it's your own voice. If you're in an organization, the organization has to have confidence that these employees may go in directions that are totally different from what the leader of the organization had in mind. On the part of the employees have to have confidence that the ensemble, the organization, will support them in inventing themselves and moving on. So that Thelonious Monk famously said, there are no mistakes, there are no wrong notes in jazz. And so think of what kind of a supportive organization can handle that, can handle the breadth of decision making where there are no mistakes. So the team and the player are equally valued and supported. It's not all about that team t-shirt. It's the individual after all. So learning by jamming, the third point here, is the jam session is an on-stage performance. And these people are right out there and they're practicing. It looks like they're performing, but they're really practicing, is what that is. You're looking at a rehearsal. Just happens to go for the whole song, not about the notes on the page. And so in business, the organization learns from each other in a group. Employees learn, they exchange in a non-competitive way. They teach each other, and that's part of the culture. They're teaching each other, so I want to suggest here, on the part of the individual, it's a two-way street. The individual is constant practice, 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 expansion. We saw it here today in two of our speakers. They're reinventing themselves. So what I'd like you to do with the people at your table is pair up or talk or discuss among yourselves. Can you recall a story, an incident in which you learned from somebody else on the fly? You received support from another team member, or you learned from another member. Maybe you got an idea from somebody else. Maybe you got a technique from somebody else. But learning on the job, not going home and practicing and then coming to perform, but learning while you're on the job. So take a minute or two, just a minute, and then we'll see if there's any questions. Anybody like to share an example or a story with the group? Maybe? Yes, we're going to, over here, and then we'll move to Dale.
So last January, there was a collapse of an ETF, a really big stock in the market, which was based on people thinking that the market would just go up. And there were literally billions of dollars in this ETF. It was the VIX. There were literally billions of dollars in it, and it was priced at $120. And somebody called me up at 5:30 after the market was closed and said, you have to get in front of your screen. And it went from 126 to 96. And that means that a third of the value of this thing was just gone in a half hour. And he called several other portfolio managers, and together we were able to get to different exchanges across the globe, and they walked me through selling certain other ETFs so that instead of losing 90% of the value of what was in this, we were actually able to lose about 10% and have a pile of cash at the end. If you're not really involved in the market, this may not make sense, but think of the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building both collapsing in slow motion over the course of several hours. And a few people who were more experienced than I was, we all got on the phone together and we started to figure out how to save our clients money. It was pretty exciting and pretty weird. So around 3 in the morning, this $126 thing was worth about $5. And the stock market itself, I think, dropped about 15% in the ensuing 3 or 4 days. So pretty exciting.
Thank you. Dale.
Thank you. Yeah, when I was in corporate, one of the things we did, my direct reports and I would meet once a week, and we'd establish goals and priorities for the coming week. And the subsequent week, the first thing they do is report back. So if somebody wasn't able to achieve one of the goals they had set for themselves, we'd ask them why, and they'd tell us what the problem was, what they ran into. Well, everybody else on that team was in essence an external consultant to that individual, and they were able to give them ideas on how they could deal with that situation in the future so that it wouldn't be a problem again. So it's that ensemble, helping the solo.
So no hoarding of information, but readily sharing and supporting in a trusting atmosphere. Yeah. I'm getting the signal that time is up, but maybe we can fudge a little bit. One more. John, did you have something, or anybody else? Questions? All right. Very good. Thank you very much. And by the way, take a listen to Mac the Knife. It's on YouTube, and it is fabulous. Thank you.